What's up guys, welcome back to Fancy Goldfish Fanatics. Today we are going to be talking all about transshipping, shipping your goldfish and also acclimating your new goldfish. So make sure you stay tuned to find out more. Hey Fanatics family, welcome back. As always, check out those links in the description. In the next video, our new fancy goldfish are arriving, so I thought it would be on topic to speak about shipping fancy goldfish, also importing fancy goldfish, and then also acclimating fancy goldfish. So I thought I would get some key facts out on that because it is quite a minefield out there when looking at these three different topics and finding out which is the best for you and the important factors to each one. So first of all, I thought we would start with transshipping or importing fancy goldfish, as that is the first general step of the process to bring goldfish into the country. Now, I've covered this subject before, so if you want to watch my full video on transshipping, then click up here in the corner and that will take you to the video where I discuss transshipping and tell you all about it. In today's video, I just wanted to bring you some general pointers and get that information out to you. So generally, when transshipping or importing fish are purchased from a breeder or a dealer in another country, for example, Thailand. So those fish are selected, they are then imported from Thailand, they go from the breeder or the dealer to the airport in Thailand, then they go from the airport in Thailand to your country of origin, for example, the UK, and then from the UK, they then are collected by your transshipper or then sometimes shipped again to your transshipper or your importer. Now, a lot of people in the Facebook group have been putting posts up saying, where can I get some nice fancy goldfish? I don't mind international shipping, etc, etc. And you need to be really careful, and this is kind of why I wanted to speak about it in this video, because there are so many scammers out there and it is even illegal to import fancy goldfish without a proper transshipper. So when you're importing goldfish, it depends on what country you're from, but here in the UK, you must have an import license, because sometimes Border Force or Border Security will check the boxes to see what's in there and check where their destination is. And if you haven't got a license and they find you're importing non-native fish that could potentially harm our natural environment, then you can get into some serious criminal charges. So please check before importing your fish what the specific paperwork you need is and the special import licenses. In the UK, we have two sort of main bodies, which is DEFRA and CFAS, and both of these come together really, and they look at different parts of fish keeping. So they will look at the imports, what is coming into the country, checking that the fish aren't illegal to own or purchase and bring into the country. They will also help if there's potential outbreaks of parasites or viruses into natural or enclosed bodies of water, and really they cover the general aspects of the ornamental and the fish farming as well in the UK, and they help to make sure the fish populations are kept in tip-top condition, they are not exposed to any potential viruses, and they are not in any potential harm of invasive species. So I actually contacted DEFRA to find out how I could import some fish, because there was a country I would like to import some fish from, and they said you need a license and you cannot legally import them without this license. And I could have applied for the license and got it, but I chose it wasn't worth all that hassle, because potentially they could come to check my premises. They need all of your information to make sure everything is above board, the fish are going into proper quarantine or a proper facility, etc., and to make sure everything is running smoothly basically. So if you are importing fish dependent on your country, you generally need a transshipper. So for instance, you could contact Pimmy at TH Goldfish, and she, for instance, may be able to import some fish for you. Now, transshipping does have its pitfalls and it also has its positives. If you want to import some fish yourself and go through a transshipper, then potentially you can get some of the best fish available, and you can potentially get fish that shops won't generally have because they're far too expensive to offer to the general public. So this has its pros. You can order some amazing fish, but it does come at a cost, and the cost is a lot. Generally, transshipping varies from 70 to 100 pounds per goldfish, dependent on the size, and then also you're buying a high grade fish generally between 100 and 200 pounds, and there generally is no guarantee. If that fish arrives in and it's dead, that's up to you. You've lost that money and there is no guarantee. And that is why sometimes it is far better to go to a dealer or a breeder in the UK and ask them to get you a specific fish. It may be far more expensive to do it that way, but you have no risk. They're quarantining it for you. They are taking all of that risk in case the fish don't make it, etc. So that's the quick bit covered on importing goldfish and transshipping. But if you want to look at that further and more in depth, then you can check out that video I linked earlier. Next, we are going on to shipping goldfish. Now, obviously, when you receive your goldfish, generally people go to the fish shop or their local pet shop to buy their goldfish. But there are some companies that offer online services where you can get your fish delivered straight to your door. And if you want to purchase these fish, I can explain how they are shipped and the best methods. And potentially you would like to ship some fish to a friend or another hobbyist. So we're going to go through the different methods that you can do for that. One of the first things you need to think about is the type of weather, whether it's going to be winter or summer. In summer, the temperatures may be very warm, so the oxygen levels within the bag may be lower. The fish's metabolism will be higher, so they may use up more of that oxygen. Whereas in winter, it may be very cold, and potentially your fish are sitting at 20, 22 degrees inside, and then they're going into that bag overnight into a box, and potentially the weather could be -1, -2, and that fish may cool down rapidly, which may impact it and not be very good for its health. So there are a few things to think about. We can combat this using heat packs and also using a poly box. Now, some suppliers will ship their fish in a white polystyrene box within a cardboard box, or some may line a cardboard box with polystyrene sheets. Now, this helps prevent any temperature swings and is the ideal scenario for your fish. Now, if the fish are being kept in cold water without a heater and the ambient temperature is similar to that, then you'll likely be fine without a poly box. But a poly box provides that little bit of extra insulation, a little bit of extra temperature stabilization, and also it can also absorb any potential shocks if the fish is dropped. Hopefully it wouldn't be, but if the fish is knocking around, that polystyrene may take a bit of the vibration and also potentially prevent your fish from getting damaged. So I would always recommend, if you can, to put your fish inside a polystyrene box within a cardboard box. Now, for shipping, you cannot just send your fish by Royal Mail. You can ship your fish by Royal Mail, but it is against their terms and conditions, so you could run into some problems there. They may reject it, send it back to you. They may hold it for a matter of days or weeks, and your fish is highly unlikely will make that length of time. So if you're going to be sending a fish, please use an authorized fish courier. For instance, in the UK here, we have APC, which will send your fish overnight, and generally it will arrive in under 24 hours. I've had experiences where the fish have arrived at about 25 hours and also sometimes around 18 to 20 hours. So it does vary, but generally they come really quickly. So that is the ideal box, that is the ideal courier or delivery method. And now we are going on to how to bag the fish and place it into that box. Now, generally you want 1 fish per bag if possible. You can use 1 bag for smaller fish. Maybe you could put 3, 5 or 10 fish in, and many dealers will have lots of fish in 1 big bag. But if we are hobbyists sending fish to others, or if we are buying slightly more expensive fish, then in the best case scenario we want to have 1 fish per bag, so they aren't bumping into each other, knocking any scales, potentially breaking their caudal fins or their dorsal fins. and that would be the best situation. We want to make sure they've got a nice amount of room to move around in, they're not too cramped, and they're not exposed to any air within the bag. Generally, you want about 1/3 water and 2/3 pure oxygen. If you are sending your fish overnight, you can use just atmospheric air. However, it does come with a high risk and potentially those fish won't make it. So in the best case scenario, I would always go for pure oxygen, as it gives the fish the best chance possible, and it will also reduce some stress. Now, some people would add a little bit of methylene blue, as this can help with oxygen absorption in the fish, and also it prevents any bacteria problems and things like that. Personally, I don't use it, but you can look into that method and potentially do a bit of research into the positives of methylene blue when shipping goldfish. But as I said, we want to place that fish in the bag with 1/3 water and 2/3 air, and if possible, we want to double. You could even triple bag the fish to prevent any punctures or any holes in the bags from occurring, and just really have that peace of mind. So that is importing fish, transshipping, bringing fish into the country, and then placing them into boxes and how to send them. So now when you receive your fish, which I will be in the next video, so I hope you stick by to watch that one, we're going to be talking about acclimating fish now. So you will see I will use this method when I acclimate my fish in the next video. Generally, there are a few different methods of acclimation. First is the drip acclimation, and also there is the temperature acclimation, and finally there is the plop and drop method, as I like to call it. So first up, we'll go with the drip acclimation. So drip acclimation is where you open the bag, you have a piece of airline and you tie a knot in it, and then you suck on the airline to create a siphon, and water will slowly drip into that bag, and it will mean that the water parameters slowly become the same as they are within the tank. Now, this method, I would say, is only appropriate for marine invertebrates. I wouldn't use this method for any other type of fish, not even the sensitive stingrays, because especially if your fish has been shipped overnight, there'll be a high level of ammonia in the bag. As soon as you open that bag, the pH will be really low and it will start to skyrocket. And a high pH and a high level of ammonia means super toxic water, and lots of damage will occur to your fish. Where the pH is low in the bag, because carbon dioxide has built up, forming carbonic acid, it has brought that pH down, and that high level of ammonia is far less toxic to your fish and is far less damaging. So as soon as you open that bag, that pH is going up, the ammonia has become really toxic, and it can cause long-lasting damage or even death to your goldfish. So I would never do that method for fish that have been shipped overnight, and generally I would only drip acclimate marine invertebrates because they can be quite sensitive. Maybe some freshwater invertebrates like some crystal shrimp or cherry shrimp, for example, but generally for those I would use the temperature acclimation method, and this is what I will be using for the goldfish. So the temperature acclimation method is you keep the fish sealed in the bag, you don't open the bag, you don't take the rubber bands off the bag, and you let that bag float on the top of your aquarium, generally for around 20 to 25 minutes. It depends what the temperature of your aquarium is and the temperature of the bag. So that is one thing to find out from your breeder or dealer, what temperature those goldfish are at. For instance, those goldfish might be at 22 degrees and your tank may be at 28, for instance. So if you can find that out in advance, you can bring that temperature down a little bit so you can sort of plan to match it straight away. So when those fish come, if you've managed to bring your fish down to 22 that are in the main tank, and then or your quarantine tank, should I say, and then you get your fish and they're also at 22, then you're pretty much ready to add them straight away, which will reduce the amount of time that they are in that toxic water within the bag. So I have found out that my fish arriving are currently at 22 degrees, and I asked 4 days prior for them to slowly be brought down to 20 degrees, which is the temperature of that tank. So hopefully when they arrive, they will be within that 18 to 22 degree range, or ideally 20 degree, and then I can put them straight into the tank. So as I said, we want the bag to sit on the surface of the water. Generally it would take about 20 to 25 minutes, depending on the size of the bag, for those temperatures to match the tank and the bag. Once that has happened, open the bag up and remove the fish with your hand from the bag. You can use a net, but generally it's quite hard to get the net in the bag. You can pour the bag into a net or over a net, but I find sometimes the fish might fall out, knock itself onto the net, might cause a bit of stress. But with your hand, when you place it into the water, your hand is nice and wet, and you can cradle that fish, preventing any damage to it, and plop it straight into the tank, which is my preferred method. Now finally, the plop and drop method, which I like to call, I don't generally use this method unless the fish is in really bad condition in the bag. And this method can cause some temperature shock if the temperatures don't match close enough. So it is a very risky method, and I don't think I've ever used this method. So the plop and drop method is, you bring your fish home, or you've got your fish that's arrived, you open the bag straight away and you plop it into the tank, as the name suggests. But generally this can be fine if the temperatures are the same already, but if there is a temperature difference, sometimes you can cause shock or even casualties, to be honest. So I would generally use that temperature acclimation, where we just place the bag on the surface of the tank, and that will make sure the temperatures are matched and we can get that fish out of that toxic water as quickly as possible. So I know this has been a little bit of a long episode, and if any of you are still watching, then kudos to you, because it's probably been quite boring, but hopefully this has been jam-packed with lots of information. If you have any questions or want to know any further detail, then please feel free to drop a comment down below and I will answer it to the best of my knowledge. Thank you all for watching as always. I hope you stick around for the next episode, because it's going to be very exciting when our fancy goldfish arrive into the brand new tank. As always, remember to keep those water changes up, and happy fish keeping.